So Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Resident Evil Veronica as it's known now, was revealed at Summer Game Fest 2026, and it's basically kicked off in a very similar way to the Resident Evil 3 remake, the beginning moments of that game, where it takes place in first person. A lot of people, were worried that it might be a first person Resident Evil game. It's not. It's third person. It's been confirmed by Capcom. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the trailer and just some of the things that have been circulating online about the game. Now, the great thing with the remakes that I like is the fact that a lot of us and people who come to my channel are going to kind of know the original back to front, like I do. And I think we're all in agreement that it needed a remake. The old game has aged quite poorly. I think it's maybe one of the Resident Evil games out of the entire series that has aged quite significantly, but that doesn't make it any less of a great entry within the series. It is. But I think we'd all be in agreement that it needed a remake. Out of any of the games within the series, I think that it needed a remake, definitely, and that's what we're getting. We're getting a remake, and we're getting the AAA team on it. The guys who worked on Resident Evil 2 remake and 4 remake are working on this one, and then I think M2, I believe, are working on the RE0 remake. So they were in charge of Resident Evil 3 remake. So we'll see how that pans out and how that goes. But that trailer for the game was really, really good. I'm surprised to say, it actually caught me off guard. It didn't start like the original starts, with Claire just, running away from a helicopter in an umbrella base. The original starts off at 100, basically. It doesn't go from 0 to 100, it's just there. It's there at 100, and then it sort of slows down when she gets on the island. So it's an interesting way of handling pacing, because the previous games started off slow, essentially, kind of, and then built up, whereas this is already built up, and then it simmers a little bit and slows down. But with this remake, it seems like they're starting off slow and then building up, so I think that's really cool. I mean, the trailer starts off with obviously Claire going to this hotel where or I guess this apartment block. Yeah, it's an apartment block, my bad. Where obviously Chris is staying in Paris, France. And we also get an aerial view of the Umbrella building that she would infiltrate in the original, but in this obviously we don't know as of yet what happens there. But somewhere along this timeline, Luis Serra is actually working in that building, it's believed. But with this remake, it's doing things a little bit differently, which I love, that's what we want. And it's a bit more mysterious. We're getting a bit more backstory on Chris and how he was watching Umbrella, but he's nowhere to be found in this trailer. Instead, Claire rings the buzzer, this old lady. I guess she runs the apartment block, she owns the apartment block. She lets her in and takes her up to see, her brother. Obviously, he's not home, because we're not going to get Chris straight off the bat. He eventually appears halfway through the storyline. So Claire goes into the room. We've got a lighter in there, some dumbbells, and a box of chocolates. It's a bit of a pigsty, but it shows that Chris is literally just a bit of a messy dude at this point, just because he's more focused on taking Umbrella down. So it's great. I like the sort of the characterization without the character being there, and you can see that in the room. And then obviously he's getting swole already, which is cool, which leads into Resident Evil 5 and kind of follows on from Code Veronica. The fact that he couldn't beat Wesker, spoilers for X amount of years old game, he couldn't beat Wesker at the end of Code Veronica X, so he got swole, he got blench, he got huge, and he still struggles even in 5. But yeah, this is the beginning, of him beefing himself up to take on bioweapons, essentially. So I thought that was a great little detail. At one point the old lady says it's like a boulder run through here, which is quite funny, and obviously that's a not RE5. They do love throwing in the boulder jokes now, definitely. It was in Village, it's in this one. If it's in any other games and I've forgotten, by all means, let me know in the comments. Now, I'm going to say something probably controversial that people ain't going to like, but I can't stand the old woman. She is so annoying. She's really irritating, to the point where I was Yeah, I'm kind of glad she probably got murked off screen. It sounds really evil, really bad, but no, I just found her to be super irritating. I understand her role in the game, definitely. It's not a big deal. Like, it's not put me off the game or anything like that. It's just that, I don't know, there's just something I found annoying with her. But basically, the trailer takes a pretty dark turn because, you know, this old lady who owns the apartment block, she hears the buzzer ring, so she's like, I better check out who that is. She goes, and obviously sort of like just disappears, right? We don't know whether she's dead, or there's a theory going around that maybe she works for Umbrella. If this is true, I would absolutely love it. It's a bit of a different spin on Rodrigo capturing Claire Redfield. Instead, you have like this Umbrella team that, you know, are sleeper agents, and I don't know, like, it would be cool. But I'm guessing, I don't know, like, however Capcom sort of want to go forward, you know, with this game and the series. Requiem kind of introduced all these different players, you know, into the plot, and we had the BSAA sort of doing their thing, but at the same time they've been implicated in using bioweapons from Village, and so it connected a little bit. And then you had like callbacks to the HCF. Is it HCF? High Post Capture Force, isn't it? Yeah, so HCF, we had callbacks to Tricell, you know, and I thought that was awesome, like, when we get into the Umbrella Prime sort of laboratory, the one underneath the Halsey, the big boy, and there's like crates and all kinds of stuff from these companies, so it shows that they were dealing with these companies, and their reach was far and wide, you know, and the old sort of series of games, they did sort of push that, but it was a little bit more covert than in the remakes and stuff, where like Luis Serra was linked to Umbrella. That wasn't the case in the original Resident Evil 4, but in this one, to tie things together a bit better, he was linked to Umbrella. He was a researcher for Umbrella, and he worked on the Nemesis. The fact that Umbrella's building, the HQ, stands pretty much front and centre in Paris. It's like one of the biggest buildings when you see that aerial view. It shows that like it has a vast reach. You can see it from far away, and it's making a statement. That's why I think that maybe this old lady is involved with Umbrella somehow, because it's showing you that shot to show you that Umbrella literally has this wide reach over the whole of Paris. So yeah, I think it would be cool. It would be a cool twist and spin if she was working, you know, with them. You don't really hear any screams or anything, but like I said, they can either go one way or the other. It could just be that she gets killed off screen and that's it. She's just a character for that beginning moment, and that's the end of it, you know. And Capcom could think, well, we don't really need to have a backstory for her or any of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think I'd prefer if she was working for them. I think that would be cool, and she's sort of luring Claire in and then trapping her. And in the next scene that we get to see, Claire is grabbed by Hunk, and he says to her, "Don't move, Claire Redfield." He knows exactly who she is, and I think having him involved in this game is a great addition, definitely, because in the original it's Rodrigo that captures her, but you can sort of tell Rodrigo's a good guy. He just works for the wrong company. You know, he is a mercenary, much like Carlos's backstory was in Resident Evil 3. I can't remember if that's only in the book. It's not really detailed in the in the games, but yeah, in the book his backstory is he was a mercenary and stuff like that. I think a lot of the UBCS were mercenaries. So yeah, you know, Rodrigo, even though he follows orders, like, he turns out to be a good guy, he saves Claire. But with Hunk, there's going to be none of that, because Hunk's just cold-hearted. Like, you know, he just enjoys being the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors. He enjoys being, you know, like one of Umbrella's top agents. So I think his addition in this, I'm sure Rodrigo's going to be in it, definitely. I think he probably helps Claire, but it looks like she gets captured by Hunk. So I think his addition will be, I don't want to say brief. I feel like it's not going to be brief, but I don't feel like he's going to be in it as much as we think he is, and clearly he doesn't die in this remake because he's in a Requiem. A lot of people who haven't played the original won't know this detail, but Rockfort Island, which is the first area or location you get to visit in Code Veronica, Rockfort Island was the training ground for Hunk. Hunk trained at Rockfort Island and then went on to be a badass, basically. So having that connection there, having Hunk, in this remake, it works. We also get to see glimpses of certain scenes from the game, and certain locations from the game, and everything I could easily tell, having played the original so many times, where it was, what part it was. The only part I'd say that did confuse me a little bit, well, there's two actually, is there's like a forested area which reminded me so much of the forested area in the remake of Resident Evil, and I guess also Resident Evil 4 to some extent, and also an area with fans and very industrial looking. My guess would be that area is where the Bandersnatchers are set on Claire, and then Steve rescues her. I think maybe that's what that area is, but who knows? They're going to add new stuff in, so they said they're not taking anything out and they're just adding. So that's going to be really cool. That's going to be awesome. I kind of hope we have the spiders come back as just normal enemies that we fight, as well as the boss, the Black Tiger, I believe it was called, or was that from the first one? It might have been from the first one actually. Yeah, I think the Black Tiger is the spider boss from the first game, from the remake, and I can't remember what this one's called, but if it's anything like Requiem's spider boss battle, I'm going to be so hyped, because that was such a surprise, because I hadn't ruined the game for myself. So getting to see that later half of the game, we fight like a giant spider and you fight a tyrant, yeah, it was fucking awesome. So yeah, I don't think, if they've said they're not cutting things out, then we're going to have everything in the game. We're going to have the bats as well, which is really cool. We're going to have the spiders, the albinoids, yeah, the hunters. So I'm just looking forward to it. One thing about the Resident Evil 3 remake that I absolutely adored, right, was the hunter designs. I love the hunter designs in that game. Honestly, I hadn't seen the hunters. They're one of my favourite sort of enemies from Resident Evil, and I hadn't seen them for so long. So getting to see them in the remake, sort of in the RE engine, was awesome. I really did like the hospital segment of that game, honestly. So yeah, it fell short in a lot of other areas, but I thought the hospital segment was pretty good. One thing I've always hated is the Bandersnatch design. I'm not a big fan of it, but I think they're going to come correct in this remake. So I'm eager to see how they make them look and what they do with them. And they were a pain in the arse in the old one. So now, working with an updated engine and technology, yeah, they're going to be a real pain in the arse, I can imagine. During these quick sort of snippets, we get to see Alfred, a little bit of Alfred, just his sort of up to his stomach area. He's got white gloves now, but he's still dressed in the red. I can tell he's going to look cool, so I'm happy with that. It's believed that the guy pulling his hood over is Steve Burnside, so that's also pretty sick. He's keeping a low profile. But obviously that's a theory, no one actually knows because we don't actually see him. But also people have noted that Claire has one of those collars around her neck like Steve did. Now for anyone not familiar with where that comes from, it's actually taken as a homage from a film, and that film is Battle Royale. I suggest anyone watching this video who hasn't seen Battle Royale, go and see that film. I mean, any which way, if it's playing in your theatre, randomly, go and see it. If you can buy the DVD, buy it. If you can buy the Blu-ray, buy it. But it's such a good film. And those collars on Claire Redfield and Steve are actually in that film. And what they are is, if someone tries to run away from basically the island that they're stuck on, their heads explode. So maybe they're gonna delve a little bit more into what those collars are for in this remake. And I'm guessing maybe it makes their heads explode. There could be something added where Steve and Claire have to actually try and get the collar off. I think that would be cool. And before leaving the island, that would be pretty cool. So yeah, she's got one now. She didn't have one in the original, and Steve's got one. And it would just add to the sort of whole trapped on this island, isolated from the rest of the world, you know, and basically Alfred's in control. You know, he is the games master. Like, so yeah, I think that would be awesome if they could delve a little bit more into the collars. That's gonna be sick. And then we get like the iconic image of the dragonfly being attacked by ants. You know, that's from the original, and all the other scenes I could pick out and say, oh, I know that's like Alexia's lab. That's the main foyer of the Ashford mansion. The main gates that lead to the military base and the Ashford mansion. Just, I could easily pick things out and go, okay, I know what that is. I know where that is. When it comes to the forest, though, I think that's a new addition, definitely. Kind of like in the Resident Evil remake. In the original Resident Evil, we didn't really have a forest that we got to explore. There wasn't a side route. You just went straight to the guardhouse. But in the remake, they switched it up a bit. They changed that, and you could go to Lisa Trevor's cabin through the forest. And so I think that's what they're doing similarly in this game, where you can explore a little bit more in this forested area. And maybe that is before you go to what I like to call it the doll room. I'm thinking maybe you get to explore in the forested area a little bit, whereas in the original, much like the original Resident Evil, it was walled off. Do you know what I mean? It was walled off. You couldn't actually really explore it. You just went through this courtyard and got to the Ashford's residence, but you had like bandersnatchers trying to slap you every 5 seconds. It was annoying as hell, but it definitely gave me anxiety back in the day. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, that forest part I'm not too sure at the moment, but yeah, are we gonna get to see Claire get into Umbrella HQ and have that battle that she had, that epic battle that she had in the original? I don't think that's gonna happen. What I think is gonna happen is Chris's segment is gonna start like that, definitely. Maybe even R. Do you know what would be super cool? If we got to actually visit that location and explore that location. I would fully geek out. Instead of having Chris, you know, having to redo Rockfort Island, even though I don't mind that, I actually quite like. A lot of people hate the fact that you just go through the same area, but it's not really the same area. It's the after effects of what's happened. It's not a Devil May Cry 4 situation, and I quite like that. Do you know what I mean? I quite like the fact that it's destroyed now as you're going through Chris, and then you've got these new enemies like attacking him. You know, in the hunters and the Albinoid, the fully grown Albinoid. I thought it was awesome. Like, if you actually go back and you play Resident Evil Code Veronica, it's not actually that annoying. Like, I wouldn't say that it's backtracking, because there's so many differences and it's done narratively, like, and quite organically. I like that. But if they want to move it forward a bit, then yeah, you could have Chris exploring the Umbrella HQ and find out that Claire has gone to Antarctica, and that would just cut the whole going back to Rockfort, etc., and then just get him straight to Antarctica, you know. Or you could just streamline that Rockfort segment a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to play that out, but I'm excited to see. Definitely, I have a feeling Umbrella HQ will play a prominent role in the game because of that aerial shot, like because of how they show you, like Capcom is showing you, like look how authoritarian Umbrella is. It has its watchful eye over this whole city. So I'm excited to see that. But here's all the concrete details anyway for the game. Development. Direction is being handled by Kazunori Kodoi and Yasuhiro Ampo, who were in charge of the RE2 and 4 remakes, so that's a good sign. Producer is Yoshiaki Hirabayashi, who's in charge of RE2 and 4 remake. Release window is Q1 2027. I'm thinking maybe February again, much like Requiem. Development started in late 2022 at Capcom Division 1. It was past the first time it was proposed, but was re-evaluated after RE Village came out. Oh wow. Currently way ahead of schedule, as it was originally scheduled to release in 2028, but was pushed forward due to development going smoothly. So that's interesting. So it was pushed away at first, and then they went back to it to review it and say, okay, yeah, let's do it. Marketing was being prepared around late 2025, planned to release on Switch 2, and aiming to have cutting-edge graphics and be the best-looking RE game to date. So yeah, they've actually gone so in-depth on Claire's character model, and it is her character model from RE2 Remake, which I'm so happy about, you know what I mean, because it's the same as Requiem 4 Remake and 2 Remake, having the same Leon model. You know, he looks the same. Whereas in the older games, he always changed his look. 100% always changed his look. A lot of the characters did. But yeah, so we're getting the same level of detail in, you know, in Claire's character, where she's the same looking character that we saw in 2 Remake. She's obviously going to have the same voice actress as well, and they've gone, like I said, they've gone so in depth that you can see the fine little hairs that are on her face. So they're really going in with this. Now for the juicy stuff, the story. More of a Claire focused game than Chris, with mix-ups in what he and Claire did in the original game. It's pretty sick. So again, that kind of bolsters my theory that he might be the one to, you know, to run riot in the Umbrella HQ. We'll have to see. Far darker tone than the original, leaning more into horror. That's really cool. Obviously, this is something that I absolutely love about the new remakes, is they do lean more into horror. Like, if we're taking away the Resident Evil 2 remake versus Resident Evil 2 original, because that's just always a horror game with some action elements. I mean, most Resident Evil games are horror games with action elements. You know, in the remake of 2, it just went for a more moody vibe, definitely a more horror aesthetic, where you do have like a flashlight. There are loads of dark areas, so a lot of jump scares. So yeah, that was cool. But then again, the original Resident Evil 2, you know, that's still horror in my eyes. When it comes to the Resident Evil 4 remake, though, compared to the original is just super campy. Like, it's creepy, definitely, and it is horror, but it's a more campy style of that. You know, it's an action film with horror elements, right? In the remake, though, they lean so heavily into the horror side of things that I think it just won me over more than the original. So I am a huge defender of, I think the remake is better than the original when it comes to Resident Evil 4 remake. So yeah, that's going to be good, because Code Veronica is still quite scary in some ways. Like, if you played it when it first released, or you played it on PS2, but it's super campy now, and it always has been kind of campy and goofy, you know, which is great. I love that. That's the older Resident Evils. Nothing's taken away from that, and I love delving back into that game for that fact. But we need something that's, because it's 2026, we need something, and this is coming out in 2027, we need something that's a little bit more up to date, you know, if it's going to be a remake of a classic. So yeah, the fact that they're going to lean more into horror and maybe have it in a, you know, have it sort of emulating Resident Evil 2 remake, I'm all for. So here it says the opening sequence has Claire visiting the Umbrella HQ in Paris with a group of tourists as she sneaks off to steal information. Okay, that's cool. So she does go to the say facility, but yeah, she goes to the complex. She gets caught and sent to Rockfort Island by Hunk. The scene with the helicopter shooting at Claire is kept. Okay, interesting. Okay, so it's not Chris, it's Claire that still runs away from the helicopter and that. That's interesting. Steve's creepiness is toned down. Yeah, like when he's sniffing her head when she's asleep. Being in its place a bit socially inept. He grew up on Rockfort Island, so he's curious about the outside world. He still has a crush on Claire. That's cool. So, like I said, they're not removing much. Rodrigo's role has been expanded similar to Luis in RE4 Remake. That's awesome. I think maybe when Claire's visiting Umbrella HQ, she might actually bump into Luis. Who knows? The Ashfords, being a Nazi family, will be addressed more directly. Cool. Okay, that was an unused concept for the Ashfords previously. Wesker has a bigger role than the original, since HCF will play a bigger role in the story. That I'm excited about, that I'm very, very happy about. I do like that the original keeps everything mysterious and stuff off screen, but for the remake I'm glad they're expanding on that, and we're going to get more of an idea of what the HCF are about and who they are as an organisation. Wesker's fight with Chris now happens earlier in the game as a boss fight rather than a cutscene. It's pretty sick. Ending Chris's section with him injured and shifting to Claire to be the one fighting Alexia. So Wesker still beats his ass, basically. Gameplay. Rockfort Island is a semi-open world, and Claire can ride a motorcycle across the island. Don't know if that's confirmed, but the opening now is fully playable and teaches stealth options. I like. That's one of the cool things about the remake of RE4. It's the stealth segments. The gore systems from RE2 Remake returns with an overhaul. Interesting. Oh, I wonder if it's going to be like you chop like a zombie in half somehow and the guts just spill out. No cuts to enemies or locations. Everything is present, but more remixed than any other remake, with changes to the chronology of events. So we're still getting spiders, we're still getting the bats. Basically nothing's changed, we're getting the moths, but I'm guessing they're going to overhaul the moth segment in the Antarctic facility 100%, because, you know, that was annoying. So I think they're going to obviously streamline it so it's not as annoying, because you can get stun locked during that part. There's a bit more information as well. So there's going to be power outages and stormy rains in environments throughout. We'll have a horror-like fairy tale element to it. It's a big game serving as the missing chapter in the RE storyline. That's awesome. And it's being directed by the two guys who did RE2 Remake. You know, there's some stuff that we've already talked about. And it says Capcom saw and heard the complaints for the RE3 Remake and are making sure to not repeat that history again. They're taking these remakes seriously. As sad as it is with what happened with RE3, that game was basically sacrificed so the other RE remakes could run. So yeah, but that's a good sign, and I believe that M2 actually were in charge of the Separate Ways DLC, and that was really good. So I have faith that they'll come through when it comes to the RE0 remake. It's definitely a tough undertaking. That game is possibly the worst game in the fixed camera series of games, so I'm excited to actually see what that remake comes with. In a weird way, I'm more excited to see what that remake does than Veronica, because Veronica is a surefire hit, definitely. I know it's going to be good, but with Zero, that could go either way, so I want to know what they do and how they change things, because it needs a complete overhaul in terms of story and just its plot, and just there's loads of stuff it needs, you know, to have an overhaul. Like pacing's just weird. They throw so many enemies at you that it needs to have some structure, definitely. Zero just needs structure. That game needs structure. That's how I see it. You know, and the thing is, because it's Resident Evil, I still like playing Zero. It's just my least favourite of the fixed camera angle games. But yeah, I still enjoy playing it, because it's actually still a decent Resident Evil game. It still gives me everything that I want. So yeah, it's a tough one with that one. So if they can make it special and something truly remarkable, that's going to be exciting. So that's about it really. We've gone over everything. When it comes to Veronica, Resident Evil Veronica is releasing, you know, in 2027. I'm guessing around February. I think they're going to do the same release date or similar release date for Veronica Remake that they did with Requiem. I really like Requiem. Requiem is a very good game, so yeah, quality's just on point going forward. I am glad that the dudes who have handled the RE2 remake, the RE4 remakes, are in charge of this. All in all, the trailer for Code Veronica Remake was good. I enjoyed it. It did everything that I wanted it to do. You know, it teased a lot of stuff for people that haven't played the original and are not familiar with Code Veronica. It expanded on it by showing us Hunk. Hunk's now involved, and he's the one that kidnapped Claire. You know, it had some world building, which was great. We got to see a bit more of Paris, although I guess in the original we don't get to see Paris, do we? We only get to see the HQ, so we get to see Paris, and then where the HQ is situated in the city. We get to see the helicopters flying to Rockfort Island, just like the original, but it looks a lot moodier. Yeah, they've made it look a bit darker and moodier, so that was cool. So yeah, I just love the fact that everything's going to be kept intact. It's got a more horror vibe. We get a boss fight with Wesker, I guess similar to Krauser, then similar to Hunk. You know, Krauser being the RE4 Remake's boss fight, Hunk being Requiem's boss fight. I think we're going to have a similar boss fight to that, but obviously Chris is going to get his ass whooped. We all know that. Hopefully he gets a couple hits in though, like, you know, more than he did in the original. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to this. Like, it was a good trailer, man. Good trailer. We do still have the Requiem DLC yet to be revealed, and what that's going to be about. And I have no clue, so I'd like to see that at some point soon. And I'm guessing when they show that, they're going to also show more footage of Code Veronica Remake. or Resident Evil Veronica. I should get that in my head starting now, that it's just Veronica. But yeah, wicked, great trailer. I love everything that I'm reading about it, you know, the synopsis for the game, and I think 2027 can't come sooner, because I want to get my hands on it and play through it. And eventually they'll reveal the Requiem DLC, because I'm eager to know what that's going to contain, and what the plot's going to be, and who the characters are going to be. I'm excited. I haven't spoiled anything about that for myself. So yeah, maybe we get to find out who Leon's married to. Who knows? But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Are you looking forward to the Code Veronica remake? Do you think it looked good? What were your thoughts on Summer Games Fest? Anything you want to sound off, just do it in the comment section. And I'll catch you again next time. I'm SystemChet66, and I'm out of it. Peace.